The fog arrived without warning, a dense, unnatural blanket that swallowed the village whole. It clung to everything it touched, a suffocating presence that choked the very air. The villagers, once lively and full of laughter, now moved with a haunted look in their eyes. Fear, thick and heavy, hung in the air, as palpable as the fog itself. The once vibrant colours of the village, the cheerful hues of painted doors and blooming flowers, were now muted and drained. The fog leached the life out of everything, leaving behind a chilling monochrome. The sun, once a comforting presence, was now a distant memory, its warmth unable to penetrate the dense, oppressive shroud. The air, once filled with the sounds of children playing and the bustle of daily life, was now eerily silent. Only the occasional cough, heavy and wet, broke the silence, a stark reminder of the fog's insidious grip on their lungs. The villagers, once eager to greet each other, now scurried past, their faces hidden, their eyes darting nervously, afraid of what lurked within the swirling grey abyss. Eliza, a young woman known for her infectious laughter and bright spirit, began to change with the arrival of the fog. Her once sparkling eyes were now clouded with a strange, distant look. Her laughter, once the soundtrack to the village's joy, was replaced by a silence that spoke volumes. Each night, as the fog grew denser, Eliza would walk. She wandered the fog-choked lanes, her white nightgown a ghostly apparition in the swirling grey. Her once graceful movements were now erratic, her body swaying as if moved by an unseen force. The villagers, whispering in hushed tones, spoke of her transformation with a mixture of fear and pity. Some said she was touched by the fog, her spirit tainted by its unnatural presence. Others spoke of an ancient curse, a malevolent force that had awakened with the arrival of the fog, choosing Eliza as its conduit. Her parents, their faces etched with worry and despair, could only watch helplessly as their daughter slipped further away with each passing day. The light that had once shone so brightly within her was slowly being extinguished, replaced by a chilling emptiness that mirrored the fog itself. News of the village's plight and Eliza's peculiar affliction reached Thomas, a young scholar with an insatiable thirst for knowledge and a keen interest in the arcane. Intrigued and driven by a sense of responsibility, he packed his bag, filled with books and instruments, and set off on horseback towards the village shrouded in mystery. The journey was long and arduous. The fog, like an insidious predator, seemed to grow thicker with each passing mile, as if trying to deter him from his destination. Yet Thomas pressed on, his resolve hardening with every chilling gust of wind, every rustle of leaves that sounded like whispers in the fog. He had read tales of such phenomena, ancient legends of mists imbued with unnatural powers, of curses that could bind a village and its inhabitants. He had dismissed them as folklore, the stuff of myths and bedtime stories. But now, as he rode deeper into the heart of the fog, a sliver of doubt began to creep into his logical mind. Upon arriving at the village, he was greeted by an eerie silence, broken only by the mournful wheezing of the wind as it snaked through the deserted lanes. The villagers, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and suspicion, eyed him with a wary curiosity. He was an outsider, an unknown entity in their fog-choked world, and they regarded him with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Thomas, armed with his notes and fueled by a mix of scholarly curiosity and genuine concern, began his investigation. He spent hours speaking with the villagers, meticulously documenting their accounts of the fog's arrival and its impact on their lives. He listened patiently to their fears and superstitions, searching for any clue that could unravel the mystery that enveloped their existence. His search led him to the village's small library, a dusty repository of forgotten lore and local history. He spent days poring over crumbling tomes and faded manuscripts, his fingers tracing the faded ink, his mind deciphering the cryptic language of the past. He sought answers in the annals of their collective memory, hoping to find an explanation, a solution hidden within the pages of their shared history. It was within a leather-bound volume, its pages brittle with age, that he stumbled upon a chilling legend. The faded script spoke of a ritual, a pact made generations ago between the village elders and an entity of immense power. The details were shrouded in cryptic verses and obscured by the passage of time, but the essence was clear: a sacrifice, an appeasement, a bond that had been broken. As he delved deeper into the text, the ritual's true nature revealed itself, chilling him to the core. It was a dark and desperate bargain, a pact made in a time of famine and despair, a deal struck with forces beyond human comprehension. And it was Eliza, he realized with a growing sense of dread, who was now at the heart of this ancient transgression. Following the cryptic clues embedded within the ancient text, Thomas embarked on a perilous journey to the outskirts of the village. Guided by a faded map sketched on a scrap of parchment, he navigated through dense thickets and treacherous ravines, the fog swirling around him like a malevolent spirit. His heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation, his every sense alert to the dangers that might lurk within the fog-laden wilderness. His search culminated in a clearing, where the ruins of an ancient stone structure stood shrouded in mist. Vines, thick as a man's arm, snaked around crumbling pillars, and the air hung heavy with the scent of decay and something ancient, something profoundly unsettling. As he stepped across the threshold, a sense of foreboding washed over him, as though he were crossing into a realm untouched by time and forgotten by light. The air within the chamber was heavy, stagnant and thick with the weight of centuries. The faint flicker of his lantern illuminated weathered carvings on the walls, depicting grotesque figures and disturbing rituals. He recognized the symbols from the ancient text: the pact, the sacrifice, the entity bound by blood and promises. It was there in the bowels of that forgotten chamber that he discovered the heart of the ritual. A circular platform etched with arcane symbols lay in the center of the room, a channel carved into its surface leading to a basin shrouded in shadow. It was a place of power, a conduit between realms, and as Thomas stared into the basin, he felt a chill grip his heart, for he knew what it demanded. The discovery of the ritual chamber sent a shock wave of fear and apprehension through the village. The whispers, once hushed and hesitant, now echoed through the fog-choked lanes, carrying with them a potent blend of fear and superstition. The villagers, their faces etched with a mixture of terror and morbid fascination, huddled together, seeking solace in numbers against the encroaching darkness. Thomas, now privy to the village's deepest, darkest secret, found himself at the heart of their terror. He became the unwilling keeper of their fate, the one who understood the true nature of their predicament and the terrible price that had to be paid to appease the forces they had unwittingly unleashed. The weight of their collective fear was almost unbearable. It pressed down on him, suffocating him with a sense of dread and urgency. He knew he had to act, to find a way to break the curse, to save Eliza and liberate the village from the grip of the haunting fog. But time, he realized with a growing sense of despair, was not on their side. Eliza's nightly wanderings were becoming increasingly erratic, her connection to the entity strengthening with each passing day. With each passing hour, the fog seemed to grow denser, colder, as if feeding off their terror. The villagers, their hope dwindling with each mournful wail of the wind, began to prepare themselves for the worst. They clung to their faith, to their traditions, to the faint hope that Thomas, the outsider who had stumbled into their nightmare, could somehow lead them out of the darkness. Section 7. The Eve of Liberation. With the weight of the village's fate upon his shoulders, Thomas immersed himself in deciphering the intricacies of the ancient ritual. He pored over every detail, every symbol, every cryptic verse, desperately seeking a solution, a loophole, a way to sever the bond without succumbing to the ritual's gruesome demands. Sleep became a luxury he could ill afford, his mind a whirlwind of ancient languages, arcane symbols, and desperate hope. He discovered that the ritual, a pact designed to ensure the village's survival during a time of famine, demanded a terrible price. The life force of a villager offered as sustenance to the entity bound within the fog. This sacrifice, performed once a generation, had maintained a fragile balance, a dark bargain that had kept the village safe from harm. But the pact had been broken. The last ritual, performed in haste and fear, had gone awry, leaving the entity ravenous, and Eliza, the descendant of the last chosen one, tethered to its hunger. Days turned into sleepless nights as Thomas wrestled with the problem. He knew that performing the ritual as prescribed would be condemning Eliza to a fate worse than death, her life force drained to sustain the entity. But defying the ritual carried its own risks, potentially unleashing the entity's full wrath upon the village. As the eve of the next full moon approached, the night designated for the ritual, the weight of his responsibility pressed down on Thomas with suffocating intensity. The villagers, their faces pale and drawn, looked to him with a mixture of hope and despair, their fate resting on the shoulders of this outsider who had dared to delve into the heart of their darkness. Section 8. The Release. The night of the full moon arrived, casting an eerie silver glow upon the fog-choked village. The air crackled with anticipation and fear, the silence amplifying the pounding of hearts and the rasp of nervous breaths. The villagers, their faces drawn and pale in the moonlight, gathered in the village square, their eyes fixed on Thomas, their hopes and fears clinging to his every move. He stood at the precipice of a terrifying decision, the ancient text clutched in his hand, his heart thundering against his ribs. He looked out at the villagers, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and despair, and he knew he couldn't condemn Eliza to such a fate. There had to be another way, a way to break the curse without sacrificing an innocent life. Guided by a desperate hope and a flash of inspiration, Thomas deviated from the ritual. He spoke words of defiance, of compassion, of the inherent goodness that resided within the heart of the village. He appealed to the entity's sense of justice, reminding it of the broken pact, the fear that had corrupted the ritual and the innocent life caught in the crossfire. As he spoke, a power surged through him, a power drawn from the collective hope and despair of the villagers gathered around him. The air crackled with energy, the fog swirling with renewed intensity, as if the entity itself was listening, weighing his words, judging the merit of his plea. Section 9. A New Dawn. A hush fell over the village as Thomas finished speaking. The air, thick with anticipation, crackled with unseen energy. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the fog began to recede. It thinned, revealing glimpses of the star-strewn sky, the moonlight casting long dancing shadows across the village square. The villagers gasped, their eyes widening in astonishment as the suffocating blanket that had held them captive for so long began to dissipate. The air, no longer thick and oppressive, rushed into their lungs, cool and sweet, carrying with it the scent of rain and earth and the promise of a new dawn. Eliza, who had stood beside Thomas throughout the ritual, her eyes vacant and distant, stirred. The colour returned to her face, a slow bloom spreading across her cheeks. Her eyes, no longer clouded and distant, met Thomas's gaze, and a flicker of recognition, of gratitude sparked within them as the last tendrils of fog evaporated, revealing the village in all its reborn glory. A collective cheer erupted from the villagers. They embraced, tears streaming down their faces, laughter bubbling up from their hearts, a symphony of relief and joy echoing through the pre-dawn air. Section 10. Scars of the Fog. The haunting fog was gone, leaving behind a village forever changed. The ordeal had tested their resilience, their faith, their very belief in the world they thought they knew. It had exposed their fears, their vulnerabilities, the fragility of the line that separated the world they knew from the darkness that lay just beyond. Eliza, fully recovered, became a symbol of the village's resilience, her story a cautionary tale whispered from one generation to the next. She dedicated her life to preserving the village's history, ensuring that the memory of the fog and the lessons it taught would never be forgotten. Thomas, hailed as a hero, chose to stay in the village, dedicating himself to understanding the forces they had encountered. He established a school, a place where knowledge and reason prevailed, where the past could be studied, understood, and hopefully prevented from repeating itself. The village, once shrouded in fear and uncertainty, emerged from the ordeal stronger, more united. The shared experience had forged an unbreakable bond between them, a collective memory that served as a constant reminder of their resilience, their capacity for compassion, and the importance of facing their fears, no matter how daunting they may seem. The scars of the fog, though invisible to the naked eye, ran deep. They served as a constant reminder of their vulnerability, of the delicate balance between the world they knew and the forces that lay beyond their comprehension. The villagers emerged from the shadow of the fog with a newfound appreciation for the simple joys of life, the warmth of the sun on their faces, the laughter of children playing in the streets, the comfort of community, and a profound respect for the unseen forces that shaped their world.